Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. So Obi-Wan Kenobi episode 3 just dropped, and as always, I'm going to break the episode down, highlight some key moments, Easter eggs and references. Our episode begins with Obi-Wan meditating on the way to Mapuzo. He's trying to reconnect to the Force, and once again tries to speak to Qui-Gon's Force Ghost, but he's unsuccessful. As I've said before, I think the show is building up to that moment when Qui-Gon finally replies, but it's going to take some training and patience from Obi-Wan. We hear more voices from the prequels as Obi-Wan's PTSD intensifies in this episode. At the same time this is happening, we see shots of Vader being assembled, and then we cut to his castle on Mustafar. This was so cool to see. He speaks to Reva through hologram, and it was so amazing to hear James Earl Jones doing the voice. He sounds a million times better than he did in Rogue One, and much more akin to what he sounded like in the original trilogy, and for me that extra touch just makes the show feel more authentic. Now we've got to address something. This scene only adds more confusion to the Grand Inquisitor situation, because it's heavily implied that he's dead, which doesn't make any sense because he's alive later in the timeline in Star Wars Rebels, and so I'm starting to believe more and more in the theory that the one in Rebels is a replacement, a different Poe and former Jedi Temple guard. It sounded so far-fetched when I said it the other day, but now, unless he makes a miraculous recovery by the end of the season, I think that's the path they're taking. And Vader even promises Reva that if she gets the job done, he will grant her the rank of Grand Inquisitor. Obviously we know that's never going to happen, and she's never going to attain such a rank. Now I will say it's very possible that Vader knows the Grand Inquisitor is still alive, but he's making the others believe that he's dead in order to incentivize them to do better. But again we see more tension between her and the remaining Inquisitors. The fifth brother firmly believes that he is next in line as Vader's leading hunter, and throughout the episode both he and Reva are in competition with one another. And we've got to talk about how awesome Fortress Inquisitorius was. Again, this was first introduced in Jedi Fallen Order, and I do expect more connections later in the show, but this fortress was a heavily armed underwater stronghold located on the moon of Nur. It was the headquarters of the Imperial Inquisitor program, and it's basically where the Inquisitors were based. Believe it or not, the existence of the fortress was hidden from the majority of the Empire in order to maintain the public perception of peace and security. Back on the transport, Obi-Wan fixes Lola, and he has a really important conversation with Leia wherein she asks him what the Force feels like. Now, just like her brother Luke, Leia is Force sensitive, and she really starts to demonstrate such abilities in this episode, at least those of the mind. This is seen even more so a couple of scenes later when they arrive on the planet of Mapuzo, and she figures out that Obi-Wan's made-up story about her mother to deter the suspicion of the stormtroopers actually has truth to it, regarding none other than Padme herself. And Leia's known for a long time that she's adopted, and so her curiosity peaks when she asks Obi-Wan about her real mother and her father. As we know from the Revenge of the Sith novelization, her Force sensitivity allows her to have memories of Padme, even though she died giving birth to her in Luke. It's also why later in Return of the Jedi, she says she remembers her mother as very beautiful, kind but sad. Now in the same conversation here, Obi-Wan brings up his own faint memories of his parents and his brother, and when Obi-Wan said this, the whole fandom stood still. We were like, Obi-Wan has a brother? Yes, indeed he does, and this is a major callback to the novel Jedi Apprentice, The Hidden Past, wherein a young Obi-Wan tells Qui-Gon his master about his brother and his family back on Stujon, Kenobi's homeworld. His brother's name is Owen, but later source material claims that visions Obi-Wan had of Owen after Order 66 were often confused and entangled with dreams of Owen Lars, Luke's uncle, so we don't really know how much is true about his brother, nor if Obi-Wan is just misremembering everything, which would not be surprising. But I really hope they address Obi-Wan's family again at some point. It really helps with the character development. All we know is that when he was an infant, he was identified as a Force sensitive and quickly taken to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant for training, and that's when he met Master Yoda and was assigned Qui-Gon Jinn. Now I know at the moment Disney have a massive initiative where they're creating comics of Obi-Wan's life, and some of those early issues do cover his childhood, so I wonder if they're going to mention Stujon and his family. Now speaking of the sequences on Mapuzo, there were a couple of earlier noteworthy scenes. Obi-Wan's PTSD plays up, and in the distance, we see his hallucination of Anakin Skywalker all dressed up in his Jedi robes. It was so awesome to see Hayden as Anakin again, and this is a small glimpse of what we're going to see later in the show during flashback sequences, not just ones taken from the prequels, but new ones filmed with Hayden and Ewan. The contact that Haja sent Obi-Wan and Leia to did not show up on time, so they rely on a local Empire sympathizer named Freck to take them to the nearest port. They pretend to be farmers, father and daughter, Auden and Luma, but after a probe droid identifies Kenobi at a checkpoint, a shootout ensues, and Haja's contact finally appears to save the day. She's a former Imperial officer turned rebel partisan called Tala Durith. She escorts Obi-Wan and Leia to the local town and prepares them to go to the planet of Jabim, which according to the Making Star Wars leaks is where we're going to meet O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s character, a partisan called Rokun. Now in these sequences we learn that Talos helped many Jedi and Force-sensitive children that the Empire were after to get off-world, and it's here that we learn that Quinlan Vos is alive and even helps Tala from time to time. I was elated with this name drop, as were all prequels fans, and to know that he survived is incredible. And it proves the deleted scenes of Revenge of the Sith, where he died on Kashyyyk, is not canon, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see him again. I know he's going to appear in the Bad Batch Season 2, and I'm going to make a video explaining why, but I've got my fingers crossed that we're also going to see him in live action again. Before Obi-Wan can get off-world, Vader and the Inquisitors had other plans. Now it's at this stage I'm going to get a bit more critical with my analysis. Vader terrorizes locals and finally senses the one person he's wanted to destroy for the last 10 years. Kenobi is so close, he can almost taste the trepidation. But when he finally confronts Kenobi, I was surprised that Vader just toyed with him. He knew that Obi-Wan was weak and not used to using his lightsaber, and so he only used one hand during their duel. But given the rage we know that Vader has in the comics, I thought he was going to go full out on him, but I think that's still to come. I guess we just gotta be patient. But one Vader line that struck Kenobi's heart is after Obi-Wan says, "What have you become?" and Vader replies with, "I am what you made me." Now we knew a paraphrased version of this from the leaks, but it's so powerful in person, and it's gonna do nothing but add to Obi-Wan's guilt. But one thing made crystal clear here is that Vader wants Obi-Wan to suffer, and not just suffer normally, but in the same way he did on Mustafar, so he lights the ground on fire and drags Obi-Wan through it. What I love about these final 10 minutes of the episode is how much they feel like a Star Wars horror movie, which I've been advocating for years. Vader wants to torture Obi-Wan, but Tala and Ned B create a distraction. But what's odd to me in this scene is that for some reason, Vader was afraid of the fire. In the Marvel Vader comics, which are canon, there were times he literally stood in the hot lava of Mustafar. That suit is designed to withstand those temperatures, so for him to turn away like that stood out to me. But on the other hand, my dear friends, to defend the scene, I think that now that Vader knows how terrified and weak Kenobi is, he figures it's going to be easier to squeeze him. I doubt he believes the fire killed him, but there is going to be another face-off very soon. This was just a taste, and I must admit, it was pretty sweet. I think the biggest mistake Tala makes in this episode is separating from Leia, because for a second time in this show, she is kidnapped by Reva. So what a dramatic ending to the episode, guys. I can't wait to see what's in store next week. I think Tala's going to take Obi-Wan to Jabim, where he's going to meet fellow Jedi and the colony of Force-sensitive children, as well as Rokun. I don't think it'll take long for Obi-Wan to realise that Leia's been kidnapped again, because she's being used as bait for Kenobi, and Reva wants nothing more than to hand Kenobi to Vader on a silver tray. She thinks she's gaining favours with Vader, but remember that Inquisitors are cogs in the Imperial machine. The minute they're no longer useful, they're killed, and I don't think Vader's going to spare her in the end. That's just my opinion, my fan theory, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I've got to give this part a 9 out of 10, and by the end of the season, we'll have a fuller image of how important certain decisions and plot armor were for the overall story. Now, there is one criticism I do want to address. Some people have said that certain parts of the episode looked more like a fan film, almost taking you out of the Star Wars world. Now, while I do understand that perspective, I think it's more the cinematography that was strikingly different in this episode. I wouldn't go as far as saying it looked like a fan film, but especially in the final few scenes, I think the set layout as well as the camera angles made the whole thing feel constricted. It felt very small. But I would say that's my only real criticism. I love the episode, the story's being told as it should, and now that Vader's found Kenobi, the stakes are raised. So bring on episode 4. I will be making more videos on the episode throughout the week, so let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. Do you agree with my criticisms? Do you not? As I said, I give this one a 9 out of 10. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a good one.